What's a skill that takes less than a week to learn but can save you thousands of dollars? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. I-60F learned how to replace a toilet, build some raised garden beds, how to sister rotten boards until I could replace them, install new dishwasher, change light fixture, and more. All online, probably less than 12 hours each project, have saved thousands. Answer: exactly. It's so easy to learn how to do tons of stuff with a little YouTube tutorial and save thousands. Am I going to build a whole new fence? No, I'll hire a professional to do it so it looks nice. But can I replace the rotten fence post when it needs it? Absolutely. Like you, I've repaired rotten fences, installed new sinks, put in new light fixtures, repaired my shower door, built a raised garden bed, installed irrigation, etc. Not being afraid to try it yourself is 90% of the difficulty for most people. Story 2. I learned how to cut my dog's hair during COVID watching videos on YouTube. Dog grooming costs a good 70 every 2 months or so over the lifetime of the animal. So my dog has an uglier haircut, but I saved thousands over the course of its life. Story 3. Many car repairs. I learned to change my brakes in a day by itself. Rotors including. Learned how to flush transmission fluid and refill, learned to repair certain gaskets, etc. Learned to replace radiator, timing belt. Each one of these things I learned took me about 48 hours to figure out. Doing the radiator myself saved me $700 alone. Story 4. Sewing. Once a week I have to patch a hole in a stuffed animal, close a hole in pants pockets, or reattach eyes. I have also made my girls' hair accessories. Materials cost much less than a store-bought thing. Story 5. Oil changes. They were costing me $100 each time I went, so I bought some plastic car ramps on sale for $50 and learned how to change oil, oil filter, check air filters, and lube what needs to be lubed. I'm saving about $300 a year, and I'm more manly than ever. Answer: I found the oil change equation to not be worth it for most people. If you are a mechanically inclined person that likes to do most of the work on your vehicle, then investing in the right jacks and tools and such can lead to a huge savings over the course of life and may even lead to making money should you pick up a few friends or family members' vehicles as well. If you're just talking about oil changes, however, the math doesn't work on a time value basis. Most quick oil lube places are sub $100 and more like $50, $60 unless you drive a race car that requires special oil, like me, that costs more. Using my wife's Nissan, an oil change is $65. To buy the oil, 4 quarts, and an oil filter would be around $45. My wife's oil change would require upfront purchases to complete, but I don't even want to do that math because it's not the point. Even if I can get the oil change down to 30 minutes, it requires going to the parts store and purchasing the supplies. 30 minutes of work, followed by returning the used oil to said parts store. All in all, this could be minimized to 1 hour of time to save $20. Now, of course, if you take it to the dealership or perhaps your shop charges more than the math can change in one direction or the other, oftentimes, even though I don't look for these, there are also coupons for $10 of an oil change, etc. If you make more than $20 an hour, the time value of money says to buy an oil change that takes 10 minutes and no work. Regardless, an oil change is almost always a $5 type of question when it comes to saving money. Most people get 1 to 2 oil changes a year unless they have some super commutes or perhaps an older vehicle that requires more frequency in changes. Story 6. Coffee. A shoot coffee machine is less than $30, and it'll make you coffee for as long as you take care of it. A French press will run you half that, and an electric kettle will run you less than the other half of $30. Paying more than 30 CWE for a cup of coffee is insane. Do it yourself and stop paying $5 a cup for it. Story 7. Financial and economic literacy, basic statistics, and critical thought, but those aren't in a week, I guess. Cooking at least 10 basic meals, not talking prime restaurant quality, but just, I voluntarily put this in my mouth and the hunger stops levels of cooking. This does, of course, scale better with serving size, but that's what meal prep is for. Knowing enough home repair to also know when you're out of your depth and you're trying to fix it and failing will be more expensive than just calling the specialist in the first place. Spreadsheeting your budget. Open up your favorite Excel clone and throw all your bills for a month in there. Really look at it, sort it, work with it. Look at the stealth costs. Really look at what you're spending money on. Buying reliable stuff. Buying a 100 set of shoes that last you 5 years is better than buying a 40 pair every year. And in the meanwhile, you'll be wearing 100 shoes. Your feet will thank you. Story 8. Understanding that there is almost no arbitrage in trading stocks unless you spend millions on an analyst department whose direct information from the industry's companies, they cover borderline insider information. Invest long-term and follow large patterns. Story 9. 2 that I can think of. 1. Reading through a document carefully. The amount of times you fill something in incorrectly and it costs you is crazy. 2. Filling out tax return forms. Similarly to the first point, making sure you understand a tax form could save a lot. Story 10. As a plumber, the amount of basic stuff that people get me to do is they could really find out on a 5-minute Google search is incredible. We used to teach basic wiring at school in the UK. Now people get me to change their thermostats, which are 3 wires. Story 11. Cooking, cleaning your teeth, brushing and flossing, changing your car's tires and possible other minor parts, repairing broken stuff in your home. That's more of a learn when it happens kind of thing though. Replacing broken faucet, hooking up a washing machine, etc. Story 12. Taking care of your teeth. Oscillating toothbrushes cost less than a nice happy hour at Applebee's. Nanotechnology and pastes are filling in cracks present in the enamel. Other pastes replicate the manganine naturally found in the mouth to prevent bad breath. The unpleasant taste of 1950s Colgate calcium carbonate is now a flavor of pyrolyzed coconut husks and Hawaiian ginger roots, awapuhi. TLDR, dental implants is $3K plus, and that's if you have enough of a jawbone to drill into. Story 13. How to Google. But I'm serious though. Knowing how to format word a question is extremely important to learn if you want to find answers. Also, if you don't even know what question to ask, knowing how to find enough info to inform yourself to ask the right question is important too. Story 14. Writing down a to-do list at the beginning of the day, even if these are routine tasks and ticking each one off as you finish, gives a good sense of accomplishment at the end of the day, keeps you on track, gives motivation to keep going, and prevents accidentally missing small yet important tasks. As here was Story 15. I've been cutting my own hair for the last 15 years. If you assume I saved 20 a month, that's $3,600. Initial investment was $100 for a good pair of buzzers, scissors, and a hand mirror that have lasted me the whole time. Story 16. Learning how to shop, whether it's groceries or general goods. Small things like being able to compare prices by looking at price per ounce unit instead of total cost. Taking the time to look over sales ads, using manufacturers' coupons, app discounts. The list goes on. So many people mindlessly shop and get into a routine that they don't realize how much they could save if they tried to. Story 17. My local bike shop shut down and was replaced by a new bike shop. The old bike shop would charge like $20 for a full rebuild of your bike, while the new bike shop would charge $100 to just look at the bike. So I have had to learn a lot about fixing my own bike. Also, basic soldering electronic skills saved me having to buy a new motor for the e-bike because the wires were severed. Story 18. Doing your own oil changes for vehicles takes less than an hour to watch a video and do it. YouTube anything to fix anything around your house, outlets, pipes, drywall, caulking, toilets, new light install. All of these are really simple and negate costs by only buying parts and spending roughly 1 to 2 hours watching and doing it. These savings add up over years to thousands in your lifetime that you can spend elsewhere. Story 19. Building credit through credit cards. Since it's mostly about low usage and always paying back what you borrowed, never underestimate the power of a one Patreon sub. The check of both of those off in a super manageable way, can be canceled anytime, and support creators you genuinely enjoy. Story 20. Oil changes over your driving life. I pretty much guarantee there is a well-lit, well-explained, well-filmed YouTube video on doing an oil change for your car, as long as it's not some crazy exotic. It takes very little time or special equipment to do, and oil goes on sale pretty frequently. I can do an oil change in less time than it takes me to drive to the oil change place and back, and I actually care about following the proper procedure, etc. And know it's been done correctly afterwards. Same thing with switching over your winter-summer tires, assuming both sets are on their own rims. Takes hardly any time, and you can inspect brakes, etc. as well. Then you're less likely to get hosed when you do go into a mechanic, because you'll have a good idea of the condition of your vehicle's braking system. Story 21. Try to fix everything by yourself. YouTube shows you almost everything you'll ever need, especially anything inside of your home that needs to be replaced or fixed. You can fix about anything with a ragged set, soak wrenches and screwdrivers. Story 22. Yes, cooking. I can make myself any pizza advertised on TV from scratch. I know how to make jelly, mayo, BBQ sauce, marinara, roux, biscuits, and a plethora of other foods from scratch. Knowing how to sew, knowing how to change oil in a tire, knowing how to hunt and fish, knowing how to save money and not impulse purchase, being frugal, and last but certainly not the least, knowing how to slide a card or a paperclip in a door lock and make it open. Chekichiyake. Story 23. Basic carpentry and drywalling skills. A hole in a wall costs a few dollars to fix yourself for possibly a few hundred to call someone in. Tools are inexpensive as well. Same with carpentry. Being able to locate a stud means you can hang shelves, cabinets, a TV, whatever, and do it safely. You can also fix most items around the house. Doors wood, cabinets are wood. Story 24. In general, the skill is watching YouTube videos on DIY for whatever you need to do. Things I have done. Replace my cracked phone screen, replace the battery in my old MacBook, drywall, tile, flooring, grow vegetable garden, compost, cook, woodworking, painted my cabinets, built a deck, put in paver walkway, fixed toilets, moved my vanity electrical. My philosophy is I can do virtually anything. Story 25. Basic cooking. Yes, it takes years to master cooking, but learning to feed yourself does not take long and just not always involve calling Uber Eats or DoorDash, which over time will break you financially. Story 26. How to negotiate your salary, or more precisely, how it's okay to try and negotiate your salary. Seriously, you can learn the basics in less than 2 hours, and it will earn you hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars each year for the rest of your life if you apply it. Story 27. Minor electrical and plumbing tasks can be learned as needed. For example, if you have an outlet go bad, an electrician is going to charge you as much as $200 to come in and replace it. You can do this for the cost of an outlet and a couple of tools just by following YouTube videos. For the big stuff, bring in the big guns, but for little stuff, give it a go yourself. Story 28. This is the real core of it all and should be stickied up at the top. IMO. Go to YouTube and do a specific search. Any project I do is preceded with an hour or so of viewing YouTube vids on it. I have fixed so many things this way, saved so much money, and also learned what not to do. Story 29. Agreed. My dryer broke earlier this year and I watched a quick YouTube video, diagnosed the broken component, bought a replacement component from the manufacturer, and got the whole thing working again. Fixing the dryer, hundreds of dollars saved. Not having to deal with the embarrassment of telling my landlord that I broke the dryer, priceless. Story 30. 10 years ago, I moved into a new place, and the drain spout in the bathtub was corroded and the stopper didn't work, so I couldn't take a bath. I called a plumber to get it fixed, and they quoted me $300. I was so shook that I took the internet to try to figure it out. It cost me an hour of watching YouTube videos, 30 in tools and parts, and 30 minutes of work to fix it myself. That started me down the path of look it up before you pay someone. Story 31. Ratio. I'm in appliance repair, and I don't mind this for most preventative maintenance. Read your manuals. However, if you're getting an error code and you Google that code, it won't give you the correct answer 95 of the time. So you will spend $50 to $100 on a part thinking you saved a call-out charge, replace it, and now you have to pay $100, the cost of the correct part, to get me to come out and fix it. Story 32. It always kind of surprises me that there are people who don't keep the balance estimate in their heads all the time. I can tell how much money I got down to 25 at any given moment, and it used to be way more precise some years ago. There are some unexpected benefits to growing up in extreme poverty. LOL. Answer. It depends where you're at. I don't track it in any level of that detail because I focus more on what the money's going on. I earn enough that I know what kind of lifestyle I can afford to live. Some months I go a bit heavier on spend. Others I spend less for whatever life reasons, but I know where I'm at relative to that benchmark. Do I know exactly what I have in any given account at any moment? Absolutely not, but I don't need to really. I might get a surprise car bill. I just got my spark plugs and a new tire unexpectedly done at my service, but as I say, I'm comfortable enough that I know I can absorb it. If I get another bill, I'll likely need to look at shuffling some money around for timings, but it's not an issue. On the flip side, if you ask me how much money I spend on food, eating out, clothes, etc., then I can tell you pretty accurately off the top of my head. TLDR, if you're comfortable, You might just manage it expenditure to a strong degree rather than cash flow. Story 33. I get daily text messages showing the balance in my checking account and a weekly text showing the balance on my credit card. It makes it super easy to track your money through your pay cycle. Highly recommend. Story 34. This is the only tip on this list that literally will save you thousands per year if you don't already do this competently. When I realized how much money I was paying in credit card interest per year using my card for overflow or emergency expenses, I spent 8 months eating rice and beans, paid that darn thing off, built up a small savings to use for surprise expenses, and now pay my credit card balance off every month. I'm not making more money or spending less money comparatively. I've just shifted my overflow from paying interest rates and overdraft fees to preloading my emergency fund. Acknowledging that not everyone is in the position to do that, but I didn't think I could do it either until I realized how much money I was wasting by being poor with a high credit card balance. Story 35. In no time at all, you'll start sticking to your budget. Story 36. Exactly. It's so easy to learn how to do tons of stuff with a little YouTube tutorial and save thousands. Am I going to build a whole new fence? No, we'll hire a professional to do it so it looks nice. But can I replace the rotten fence post when it needs it? Absolutely. Like you, I've repaired rotten fences, installed new sinks, put in new light fixtures, repaired my shower door, built a raised garden bed, installed irrigation, etc. Not being afraid to try it yourself is 90 of the difficulty for most people. Story 37. That's true, but the trick is knowing which stuff you should try to do yourself and which stuff to just hire a professional. I know people who've done thousands of dollars of damage trying to do their own plumbing. But yeah, fixing a gate that won't latch or other non-critical stuff, try to figure it out yourself first. You can always call a pro later if you need to. Just be careful with anything that could do water damage or burn your house down. Story 38. Want to learn to cook? Get one of those meal delivery kits that you cook and comes with the instructions cards. You'll learn timings and how different foods should be cooked and what ingredients go together. Do it for 1 month and cancel. Cheapest cooking class you'll ever do, and you'll eat well. Story 39. I love cooking. The wife thinks I'm an amazing chef, but I'm not. I just like messing with different things and seeing what comes out. Always use fresh ingredients though, so I know we're healthy and eating well. After my daughter told me she'd made bread at school years ago, I decided to learn. Now I make pizza to die for. Friends and family invite themselves around for pizza night often. I feel like anyone's capable if they just give it a go. Story 40. I used to order in all the time because I thought cooking for a big family was more expensive till I actually started doing groceries. Now I know better, and that while the price of ingredients for a home-cooked meal might be steep, it's still far cheaper than ordering in each time. You learn something new and important too. Story 41. Okay, but it took me a lifetime to really learn the basis, not even master it. And I've loved cooking since I was a child. Some people are really good at it from a start, but FR cooking requires an extra intuition that I didn't start with. Story 42. Seriously, my wife and I save so much money compared to other people we know by simply cooking. We might grab something one day on the weekend, but that's it. It's funny how most of the things we enjoy eating at restaurants can easily be made at home and is much healthier too. Story 43. Came here to say this. Knowing how to cook properly and follow recipes, etc., do substitutions and so on, especially with the inflations over the last years, now knowing how to budget for groceries and how to prepare them, is a skill that more people should have and need right now more than ever. Story 44. Honestly, while this is true, it's so much work and hassle to do that I don't mind paying for it, and I know how to do it myself most of the time. I made costumes for our LARP. I just dislike doing it LMFAO. Story 45. Plus, balance. Work on balancing on 1 foot while brushing, then move to doing it with your eyes closed, then move to 1 foot tiptoe. Will save you untold number of falls and injuries. Make you better at sports too. Story 46. Being able to do basic car home repair saves so much money. My first house was a fixer-upper but had a good foundation, so to speak. I'm pretty sure I repaired, upgraded everything myself, except for refinishing the wood floors and replacing the roof. I'm sure I saved tens of thousands of dollars at least, and we sold it for a $165K profit. Story 47. I've just changed all 4 calipers, brake pads and rotors, flushed brake fluids on my 15 years old car. I had to buy new tools to do the job. All parts, rust-proof quality level, Makita impact, torque wrench, new ratchet kit, brake fluid pump cost me $1,200 total. It would have been $2,200 at a mechanic's. Answer. That's the thing about tools that I try to teach people. For about $150-200, you can set yourself up with a decent basic toolbox socket set that will take care of most low-impact easy home and auto repair. Once you decide to take on another project and find that you need a new specific tool, that's when you go purchase that tool. Such as, I recently needed to replace the O2 sensors on a car, so I took that opportunity to go spend a few bucks for a specialty O2 sensor socket. Or I'm getting ready to do a brake fluid flush while also doing new rotor spads. So I'm taking the opportunity to purchase a vacuum brake bleeder kit. Things like that, maybe $20-50 per job, and you'll have that tool potentially for the rest of your life. That's how your average home gamer mechanic repairman amasses a big tool collection while also know how to actually use the tools they've bought. Story 48. Hope you do the water pump to go with that timing belt. They always recommend you do both at the same mileage time. You do one, do the other. The feeling you get after starting it back up after you've torn stuff apart is the best feeling ever. Nicely done. Story 49. Basic sewing is definitely a learn-in-a-week skill, especially with all the tech we have. You can even just get iron-on tape to shorten your trousers or skirts. There is hand sewing machines for a basic fix. Story 50. Word up, I have cut my own hair for a decade now. I know exactly how I want it at this point, and it is better than, almost, anything ever done by a pro stylist. The real savings happened when I started cutting my son's hair. My daughter got jealous, so I learned to cut girls' hair. When my wife saw that I did a pretty decent job, I started cutting her hair. Not only has it saved thousands at this point, but the time saved is even more valuable. When you start, cut off way less than you want to, and you can get 2 or 3 practices in per haircut. Story 51. I wanted to see if someone posted this before I put my answer up. I've cut my own hair since the early 2000s. Back then, haircuts were $7 or so, but still quite a savings. Also important is the time saved. I can cut my own hair in the time it takes to simply drive to the barbershop. No appointments needed. Saturdays were usually pretty busy, so I might want an 11 a.m. cut, but she didn't have anything open until 2:30. Then figure in your equipment is clean. Those cutters last quite a while. In 20-something years of doing this, I'm on my 4th or 5th cutter. I know the one I'm using currently I've had longer than I've lived at this house, which is going on 3 years. Story 52. I've lost enough hair that the only honest cut is a shave, don't like the look, or a short buzz cut. A 50 trimmer lasts for years, and since I trim every 2 weeks, the savings is enormous, not to mention the time savings. Story 53. My husband has worn a glorified buzz cut since I met him. Pre-COVID, he went to the local barber, and it was like 20. During COVID, he bought a trimmer on Amazon for $17, and it's still going strong. I'd say I've given him about 75 haircuts since then, saving us almost $1,500. Story 54. Saved me $452 days ago. I think that about 30 of my bills are wrong on big ticket items. Electrical work, tree removal, shed construction, car rental, medical bills. I have made corrections on all those. Once I was billed twice for removal of material. Once the work done didn't match the quote. Once the tree removal guy didn't understand how to do a calculation on their own invoice. Once the workers thought their scope of work was different than what the work order said, and I has to call the boss. If you don't look out for yourself, you will be taken advantage of. Story 55. Depends on the country and the kind of shopping. Here the prices are not negotiable except IT and TV mismatch the Amazon prices. Sometimes they are lower, sometimes higher. And furniture kitchen. You never pay the price. It's normal to get furniture at 40 to 80 less, and especially when it's the end of the year. Story 56. So true. I used to get overcharged for something as simple as an oil change. Just because I didn't know anything about mechanics, they took advantage of my ignorance and told me the car needed all sorts of stuff when it really didn't. Now that I've learned a bit, I do some things myself and save money instead of taking it to a shop. Story 57. 30. Doing car stuff seems intimidating to the average person who has never done car stuff, but just think about the average nose picker working at your local quick lube shop and consider that they can change the oil on any car that drives into their shop in half an hour. That said, if you actually use quality oil and filters, you will likely not save a whole lot of money over a quick lube shop if you drive an older car. Though some shops, Jiffy Lube, in particular IIRC, have a deal where if you get your oil changed with them, you can stop into any franchise and get your fluids checked and topped off if necessary, which, if you drive an oil burner or a car that leaks coolant, that can save you a ton of money. Story 58. Maybe I'm dumb, but I've never felt the difference. Like no matter how I lift, I need both my knees and my back. Without the knees, I can't lift, and without the back, I can't stabilize. It hurts my back though, so I'm sure I'm doing it wrong, but I just don't get it. Story 59. I really dislike that these have become a thing. The grocery store apps are absolutely atrocious. I'm guessing that's on purpose so they can claim they have great deals, but they make it such a pain in the jerk to get them that most people don't bother. Very frustrating that the grocery store makes these app coupons required, yet don't provide any type of help at the store to the customers who just can't figure out the app. They should make same coupons available via the mailers or newspaper. This way it's fair to those that don't have or can't understand a smartphone. Story 60. I've never had major problems with my teeth, but only started flossing half a year ago, because why not? I don't have any special diet or anything. Does anyone know if that's maybe genetic? Flossing feels like I'm doing something positive, but I don't really see any difference than without doing it. Story 61. Learning how to cook quick and basic meals too. Lots of people start off too hard and end up quitting in frustration. They end up feeling like cooking takes too much time and effort when really boiling a pasta or making some eggs and toast takes 5 to 10 minutes. Not to mention the money party too hard on extravagant ingredients. Don't eat a Wagyu steak every night and expect to save money. Story 62. Personally, I find cooking to be annoying and quite unenjoyable. The only exception I make to that is grilling with friends. I also dislike using ovens. It's strange, but the smell of an oven warming up causes me to lose my appetite. I don't like the time it takes, the cleanup and the rest of the tediousness. I rather order something and have it delivered and do something else in those 20-40 minutes it can take to make a meal. Story 63. To anyone reading this, if you live in an area prone to hurricanes or winds above 80 km/h, the panels need to be anchored into the structure of your roof. Unless you're a carpenter, you're probably going to need professional help. Solar panels make really good sales. Story 64. I found the oil change equation to not be worth it for most people. If you are a mechanically inclined person that likes to do most of the work on your vehicle, then investing in the right jacks and tools and such can lead to a huge savings over the course of life and may even lead to making money, should you pick up a few friends or family members' vehicles as well. If you're just talking about oil changes, however, the math doesn't work on a time value basis. Most quick oil lube places are sub $100 and more like 50-60 unless you drive a race car that requires special oil, like me, that costs more. Using my wife's Nissan, an oil change is $65. To buy the oil, 4 quarts, and an oil filter would be around $45. My wife's oil change would require upfront purchases to complete, but I don't even want to do that math because it's not the point. Even if I can get the oil change down to 30 minutes, it requires going to the parts store and purchasing the supplies. 30 minutes of work, followed by returning the used oil to said parts store. All in all, this could be minimized to 1 hour of time to save $20. Now, of course, if you take it to the dealership or perhaps your shop charges more, then the math can change in one direction or the other. Oftentimes, even though I don't look for these, there are also coupons for $10 of an oil change, etc. If you make more than $20 an hour, the time value of money says to buy an oil change that takes 10 minutes and no work. Regardless, an oil change is almost always a $5 type of question when it comes to saving money. Most people get 1 to 2 oil changes a year, unless they have some super commutes or perhaps an older vehicle that requires more frequency in changes. Answer. The other part of the oil change equation is that if you take your car to an actual mechanic, as opposed to a quick lube place, you get an additional benefit of an actual mechanic looking over your car. Kind of like your car going to a yearly physical or dental cleaning. It's better to find out that something is about to fail when you bring it in during an oil change, instead of bringing it in after it fails. Granted, you also have to trust your mechanic, but if they bring something up that might be an issue in the future, you at least have the time to shop it around other places and get second opinions. If something breaks down, you are kind of stuck with the first place you can get it to. Story 65. I'm on the opposite side of this info. Been changing my own oil since I was 18 and 28. Now, I always was told my family that mechanics were expensive and overpriced and have always used them as an absolute last resort and don't go unless I have around $1,000 to spare mentally because I'm scared I wouldn't be able to afford the labor, etc. Most anything car-related, I'm troubleshooting and fixing myself if I can. Anyways, if I buy oil for my truck, in the filter I'm spending around $60-70. If I do an oil change at a place, it'll be either included in the cost or around $30 extra. I get around there, buy the oil here for a free oil change. packs by making them agree to use a filter. I bring myself beforehand, because some of them use yee ones. But yeah, bro, I pissed 35 on a haircut and beard cut before tip, shoot for 30 more. I'll gladly let someone else do my oil change. Story 66. Luckily, mine still only cost 35 with synthetic blend with tire rotations and a bunch of other upsellable safety checkup items, cabin filter, tire dry rot checks. I'm semi-car ignorant, so these are nice to know about too. Story 67. As a woman who has learned the proper way to change a tire and has desperately tried in vain many times before crashing out and calling roadside assistance, those freaking lug nuts are always put on with a pneumatic impact tool, and I've never been successful at getting them off myself. I used all the tricks that the internet offers. Longer jack arm, standing bouncing on the jack arm, never been able to get those GD things to move. Story 68. A shoot coffee machine is less than $30. A French press will run you half that, and a simple drip cone is half of that. I bought one to use when camping, and it quickly became my go-to. Bonus points, it takes up the least amount of cabinet countertop space, and it's super quick and easy to clean. Story 69. Recently did this, paid $25 for engine and cabin air filters that Jiffy Lube would have charged me $100 for. Bonus, I discovered that whoever put in the previous cabin air filter put it in sideways, forcing it in by scrunching one side of it, leaving a 1 1 gap at the back of the filter housing. Story 70. I'm bad with this because I'm working on losing weight, so I am actively trying not to finish meals, but leftovers have never really been a thing until now. Story 71. It works until suddenly it doesn't. There is no foolproof way to invest. You still need to think and hedge. Of course, it absolutely beats not investing, so you probably should still do it. Just don't expect full safety. Story 72. Yeah, this used to be true before it became widely legalized, but the amount I paid in electric bills, nutrients, and water for 2 8 in no conceivable way could have been cheaper than just buying flour at the dispensary. Story 73. My husband, who is 76, grew up with a mechanic dad and worked in auto dealerships for years. He'll tackle a lot of repairs. However, we have learned the hard way that Mazdas, our youngest son has one, are very hostile to work on yourself. Make sure if you want to do something more than oil changes that your car is not designed to thwart independent repair. Story 74. Careful with that one. Self-restraint has probably cost a ton of people lives they couldn't even have imagined. Pitch the deal. Ask the girl out of your league out. Invest in your idea. A lot of times people mistake uncertainty and lack of confidence with prudent self-restraint. Story 75. The difference between the dealer doing it and me is 30 and I get it done once a year. Additionally, they'll toss it on a lift and send me a video of the bottom of my car. I'll do a lot of other maintenance, but oil isn't worth it for me. Story 76. Often mine is also, I don't have those 300 worth of tools. Installing a roller for the garage door was one, for example, that when I learned about maybe needing to retension the door and seeing the tools I might need, I decided to pay someone. Slapped down some new floating floor over XMS, though that one was satisfying. Did the majority of the house for under $1,000. Back wasn't happy with me though. Story 77. Hey, it depends where you're at. I don't track it in any level of that detail because I focus more on what the money's going on. I earn enough that I know what kind of lifestyle I can afford to live. Some months I go a bit heavier on spend, others I spend less for whatever life reasons. But I know where I'm at relative to that benchmark. Do I know exactly what I have in any given account at any moment? Absolutely not, but I don't need to, really. I might get a surprise car bill. Edgy, I just got my spark plugs and a new tire unexpectedly done at my service. But as I say, I'm comfortable enough that I know I can absorb it. If I get another bill, I'll likely need to look at shuffling some money around for timings, but it's not an issue. On the flip side, if you ask me how much money I spend on food, eating out, clothes, etc., then I can tell you pretty accurately off the top of my head. TLDR. If you're comfortable, you might just manage expenditure to a strong degree rather than cash flow. Story 78. That's mostly meaningless for any but the most basic of financial situations. As soon as you start adding multiple accounts to the equation, the number in your checking account loses a lot of its meaning. Story 79. It's impossible to keep an exact running total when the number goes up and down randomly each day, but I also trust myself to be frugal. I looked at my statements monthly until I stopped noticing foolish expenses and then gradually lost interest. Embarrassingly, now I only do it to quickly make sure someone hasn't stolen my credit cards. Story 80. There is no way an average person can go from 0 to replacing a toilet in 12 hours. Having replaced a toilet myself while much younger and male, I'd go as far as to say the average 60 us would have great difficulty just lifting the freaking toilet. Of course, there is always an element of ignorance is bliss in these situations, because after all, you can even design a nuclear power plant in 12 hours if you don't care how well it works. But building raised garden beds and replacing a toilet are very different in terms of risk and complexity. Story 81. My parents are like this. Growing up, we had a lot of fast food, especially as we got older. As wee ones, the effort was put in. Around the age of 8 or 9, things started slipping, and it became, do you want McDonald's or Arby's for dinner? Almost every other day. Microwave meals were also quite popular. I very highly do not recommend it. Story 82. Microwave. I eat a lot of those healthy choice frozen dinners. Occasionally, if I do cook, it's something simple like tacos or spaghetti. I live alone and don't care enough to spend the time cooking. Plus, all the cleanup isn't worth it. Story 83. I dislike cooking, and I dislike the cleanup even more. When I cook, I usually throw things in a crock pot or casserole. I don't want to stand at the counter for hours cutting and pouring and sautéing and divvying all this stuff up. Dump and go. That's how I like it, with the occasional toaster or microwave meal and a bunch of leftovers. Story 84. Moved to an apartment by myself in college. I knew how to use a George Foreman grill and loved it, and could boil noodles and rice and make toast and eggs. Decided it was time to learn how to make General Tso's chicken. Made it every day for a week until I got it right, and then dove into other recipes. Sure, some got fudge up, but I learned and had a blast. I'm not going to win any cooking contests, but I can handle basic kitchen instructions if I need to help out. Story 85. Also, it's fine to buy frozen or prepared ingredients. Don't like chopping onions? You can buy a bag of pre-chopped onions. Broccoli keeps going bad before you use it? Buy frozen florets. Don't feel like cooking a whole chicken? Buy the rotisserie chicken from the grocery store. Story 86. Seriously, I love cooking and know how, but I'll get a box from one of those delivery services from time to time, not naming because this isn't a promotion, and it's honestly such a stress relief. Everything is right there, clearly laid out instructions, and they tend to be very straightforward. Hot home-cooked meal in sometimes less than half an hour, and I pretty much just watched the show the whole time. Good advice. Story 87. I did this. I learned about spices and searing meat before putting it in the oven. I was previously pretty intimidated by cooking, but it gave me a bit of confidence and encouraged me to branch out with what I typically made. Story 88. I mean, sure, I can find a way to make baked chicken prohibitively expensive, but if people want to be reasonable and moderate in their approaches, it will save a lot. For the price of a 4-person meal at McDonald's, I can feed my entire family 4 whole meals. Story 89. Sort of. Lifelong sewer here. Modern clothing is made of poor quality, non-durable fabrics, so mending it won't last much longer. Vintage Carhartt with a tear? Pendleton flannel? Mend the hell out of them. Story 90. Butting in to share my suffering. I've got a terrier mix whose coat is an error of spliced genetics. Imagine a double-coated dog, like a husky or corgi with no undercoat. Only the oiler, waterproof upper coat for all its fur. All the insulation with none of the airflow. All the waterproofing with none of the self-cleaning. Now make it long, rough, and so oily that it leaves a film on your hand if you pet him for more than a few seconds. All that oil traps dirt, too, just for fun. It clumps together and makes him look like a long-furred dog toy that's been chewed on for a few years without ever being washed. You can bathe and brush him as meticulously as you want. Little man will look like he just hopped out of a garbage truck 2 hours later. No dietary problems. No skin conditions. Just cursed genes. If I don't buzz him down every 2 months in the summer, he overheats after about 3 minutes outside. I save so much money shaving that dude down myself. Story 91. Most dogs have fur that stays short or only grows a few inches max. Non-shedding hypoallergenic breeds have hair that grows more similarly to how people's do, just really, really long without stopping. These are poodles, Yorkies, Shih Tzus, Schnauzers, etc. So getting these breeds buzzed down every couple months, just like people maintaining a short haircut every couple months, keeps the hair cleaner, untangled, and much lower maintenance day to day. Story 92. Something I read once that has stuck with me is that leaving the ground is the elixir of youth. Jumping is the key. You can walk and lift and swim and do all sorts of things, but jumping and landing is how you keep your body from aging as long as possible. You reminded me of it because, of course, you need good balance for that. Story 93. I started doing this a year ago. I think it saved me recently. I did a crazy, for me, hike. Up worn 300 talas FT in a mile, then back down. Fell on the way down, was terrified. I twisted an ankle, but somehow didn't. Am content to think it was all that toothbrushing on one foot. Story 94. Joke's on you. Am American with genetic congestive heart failure. Just went through a quad bypass. No matter how much Mediterranean salad I had, no matter how many little cheese squares I ate at a party once, was going to die, slab cold, at 50. I got all that fixed for the low price of my job, and everything I've ever made, and everything I will ever make. I got people in my life who said, well, you got fixed. I mean, kinda, but you're still here. I've got this pain in my left knee, drives me nuts. So I get you, bro. So you think you're free of money? I'm totally free. It's all numbers now. Money is a joke with no punchline, an illusion. If they can charge me more than any human could possibly hope to make above food and shelter for a lifetime, he'll bill them their immortal soul for my stunning conversation in the ICU. He'll take my payment in Disney dollars, thank you. I had good health insurance. I paid outrageous numbers for it. I worked hard, on weekends, overnights. I saved numbers for kids' college. They luckily can't touch those numbers. Maybe he'll keep the house. Fingers crossed. Yippee! He'll have to talk to a lawyer probably soon about resetting the numbers, though I did everything to make the numbers go up. Understood that all of life was about numbers. So yeah, my kids will eat. That will work out. He'll make those numbers happen. But yeah, there is no money. Not after what they charged me for life-saving medicine. The cost was literally indentured servitude, even for someone with insurance, for life. There's an old Jack Benny sketch where Jack, the comedian, gets robbed in an alley. The guy pulls a gun on him and says, your money or your life. And there's a big pause. The robber says, hurry up. And Jack screams back, I'm thinking about it. Story 95. Even if you have to buy new tools, it's easy to come out ahead because when you start doing this stuff yourself, you'll quickly discover that most of the cost when you take a car to a mechanic is coming from the labor. The last time one of my cars needed spark plugs, the mechanic quoted me $700. The new plugs themselves were $80 total. Story 96. That's the thing about tools that I try to teach people. For about $150-$200, you can set yourself up with a decent basic toolbox socket set that will take care of most low-impact, easy home and auto repair. Once you decide to take on another project and find that you need a new specific tool, that's when you go purchase that tool, such as, I recently needed to replace the O2 sensors on a car, so I took that opportunity to go spend a few bucks for a specialty O2 sensor socket. Or, I'm getting ready to do a brake fluid flush, while also doing new rotor spads, so I'm taking the opportunity to purchase a vacuum brake bleeder kit. Things like that, maybe $20-$50 per job, and you'll have that tool potentially for the rest of your life. That's how your average home gamer, mechanic repairman, amasses a big tool collection, while also know how to actually use the tools they've bought. Story 97. Yeah, that's almost the exact reason why the 48 hours is there. That shoot is unbelievably time-consuming. My whole weekend was dedicated to it from morning to evening, both days. Still worth it for that feeling. Story 98. It's a wall. I don't recall the model or set ID. It was their midpoint clipper, came with a dozen or so guides. It helps that I prefer a shorter cut, so the 12 all around works for me. I originally tried to use the various guides for a more professional look, but I botched that up enough times to just go with a single guide. Story 99. Look up the difference between a squat and a deadlift. Do them at home in front of the mirror following steps and cues, then try them with a little bit of weight. I think when you understand the deadlift, it feels like a very fundamental and natural movement. Saying lift with your knees isn't wrong, but not that simple. I lift a lot of weight at work and find myself doing deadlifts more often. Shoulders back and down. Core braced, lower back neutral, knees slightly bent. It feels easier and safer. Story 100. Here's a couple of other mental cues that might be more helpful for you. Hip drive. Imagine all of the force is being exerted through your hip muscles to stand up straight. Imagine you are pushing the ground down with your feet instead of pushing yourself up with your legs. Story 101. Knees is a bad cue. You should have a tight core, locked shoulders, and a good grip on what you're lifting. You then push up through your heels, feeling your quads engage. Your hips should be naturally coming forward like a hinge opening up. Story 102. I also dislike it because senior citizens are really the ones that like to and have time to cut coupons, yet many of them are completely lost on this. I have spent a lot of time helping senior citizens in my grocery store to download coupons and apps to their phone. Very frustrating that the grocery store makes these app coupons required, yet don't provide any type of help at the store to the customers who just can't figure out the app. They should make same coupons available via the mailers or newspaper. This way it's fair to those that don't have or can't understand a smartphone. Story 103. My grocery store's app is simple. You just scroll through the list and clip what you want. You used to actually have to go through a physical paper flyer and cut out coupons, bring a stack to the store, and have them all scanned at the register. So this is way easier. Story 104. For gum health in particular, there are a bunch of factors. Genetics, smoking, and a history of orthodontic work come to mind. For most of my life, I brushed every day, some days even twice a day, and my gums were always mildly irritated. When I started flossing, it helped a lot. Story 105. That's exactly how my wife and I viewed it. We did ours the first couple of years after getting married. Then her father died, and there was some more complex inheritance stuff to deal with, so we found an accountant. Paid to have them done for a couple of years, then out of the blue got a letter telling all clients that they were increasing their minimum rate to about 3x what it was the year before. So we do our own again. Story 106. Don't forget to chalk the tires. Chalking is very important. I usually do both sides of any tires on the ground. Plus, I always use extra jack stands. I had help one time, and they chalked the tires for me. They've worked on cars before, so I trusted what they done. Well, they had a brain-dead moment and chalked only one side of the tire. I forget exactly what I was doing. I think just replacing the caliper, and I had my leg under the hub. I had to get up for something, and not 10 seconds later, the car falls off the jack. If I didn't get up when I did, I'd be missing half my leg. So do stuff right and do it yourself. Verify it yourself. No one will take your safety as seriously as you do. Story 107. Time for me to mention that my sister's friend's husband died in his 30s changing his oil at home. He used a jack but didn't have things set up right, and the jack slipped, causing the SUV to crash down and crush him to passing. Story 108. Good quality plastic ramps like Rhino ramps have fiberglass reinforcement and are way thicker than they need to be. I drop mine to the ground in position regularly, and they've never cracked or broken in 7 years. You just store them inside out of the sunlight or extreme temps. Story 109. Yay, after buying the filter, full synthetic oil, and paying to dispose of the used oil, it cost me way more than the $100 CDN that the shop charges me, and it's way less hassle. Also, I'm a plumber by trade, so gaff about being manly at home. Story 110. When I started doing my own oil changes, I figured that the cost was a wash. What I saved was time. I lived only a few minutes from the auto parts store. It takes me 30 minutes to change the oil. If I took it to a shop, they'd have it all day. YYMV depending on where you live. Nowadays, I'm told an oil change is $100 where I live, so I'm definitely saving money. Story 111. The other part of the oil change equation is that if you take your car to an actual mechanic as opposed to a quick lube place, you get an additional benefit of an actual mechanic looking over your car. Kind of like your car going to a yearly physical or dental cleaning. It's better to find out that something is about to fail when you bring it in during an oil change instead of bringing it in after it fails. Granted, you also have to trust your mechanic. Story 112. Sadly, the battery one is for old cars. For newer ones, a new battery needs to be coated. Feeling old, huh? With EFB and AGM battery technology, vehicles adjust charging as batteries age. So after a DIY battery replacement, you must update the vehicle computer to ensure proper charging. Story 113. The best strategy you can have is buy exactly what you plan to eat and eat exactly what you buy. If you have leftovers, separate them immediately and put them in the fridge as soon as they cool off. Maybe set the timer so you don't forget. Story 114. Curious as to what state. Here, the taxes basically make it just as expensive and lower quality than what you used to be able to get from a dealer. On second look, 2 8-10 tenths? How much are you smoking? Story 115. Yeah, for sure. For people living in car-centric cities, cycling is hard. If you can make it work, it saves a ton of money. Great for mental health, great for physical health, not environmentally damaging, not harmful to local asthmatics, helps you discover parts of your area you wouldn't otherwise know, etc., etc., etc. Not for everyone, but definitely for more people than currently do it. Story 116. The biggest payoff comes if you are able to avoid owning a car altogether. The most expensive part of owning a car is the payment. The gas is a fraction of that, even for a gas guzzler. This is why most of our urban planners should be language in violation of Reddit rules. All they do is make it impossible for most working people to live within walking distance from life activities, work, shopping, school, and recreation. Story 117. YouTube is such a godsend for appliance repairs. There's probably a video out there for your exact model and repair that will walk you through step by step, and if not, there's one close enough to figure it out. When my dryer went out, the video I found even had an Amazon link to the exact part I needed to buy. I'm sure it was an affiliate link, but I'm glad he got paid for that. Story 118. When you grow up in poverty and finally are in control of finances, yes, it causes you as an adult to be more conscious of spending due to fear of being in a situation similar to the one you grew up in. Story 119. One interesting phenomenon I've seen in this regard is the use of credit cards. When you're poor, you often use credit cards to supplement your income for necessities and end up in a cycle of debt. This causes a fear of credit cards. So even when somebody starts making money and is financially stable, they either don't use credit cards at all, they have many benefits, or they use them to make purchases they still can't afford, rather than a tool for discounts and cash back. Story 120. Add in some auto debits, a direct deposit from an hourly job or a job with tips, and some discretionary spending, and I don't see how you'd keep track of your balance to the 25 unless you're checking your balance daily. Story 121. Now and then I'll open up DoorDash when I'm feeling lazy, and then get sticker shock every time when I hit the checkout screen and see my 12 meal has jumped up to 24, then just go out myself or make a sandwich. Story 122. I worked for years as a pizza delivery driver in my early 20s, so it's hard for me to pay money to have something delivered instead. And the main place I worked at had free delivery and tips were usually 1-2. These days, the delivery charges and tip can easily get over 10. I'm not paying 20 to have something like McDonald's delivered. Story 123. I make a stir-fry or curry dish that is just chopped veggies and rice all the time. It's super healthy. SS&D saves a fortune. I work with people who have food delivered like that, and they are throwing their life away and basically working to eat. Story 124. That's one benefit of deleting up in a small town. We didn't have any fast food nearby. Ate in every night. A neighboring town got a McDonald's in the mid-90s when I was a teen. That was my first time eating it. Story 125. There are plenty of simple dishes you can fix in 15 minutes tops. I used to dislike cleaning up after cooking too, until I learned this simple trick. Always clean up as you go, instead of doing it an hour later when everything is dried up. It's much easier, and when you're done, you're done. Answer: I have always cleaned up as I go. There are always still dishes and cleaning to be done after you finish eating, even with a quick 15-minute meal, unless you put your leftovers away and clean what it was made in before you eat. Which maybe you do, and that works for you. I know when I finish cooking a quick meal, I'm hungry and want to eat while my food is hot, not clean while it cools. For some, making that 15-minute meal is literally all the energy they have left, and that pot can't get cleaned. Story 126. My son is a welder and works second shift. He bulk cooks his meals for the week, stores in glass containers. He's into weightlifting and health conscious, so he makes really good, healthy stuff. He also is very value conscious. His coworkers were jealous that he was getting home-cooked meals, but he told them he does it all himself. Story 127. The problem is most people here understand cooking as make the same stuff I'd buy frozen. Make a pepperoni pizza, make a burger, make chicken nuggets, etc. There is a horrifying ignorance of what an actual meal is, let alone a healthy one. Story 128. I started shifting hands while doing basic yard work. Raking, shoveling, sweeping, because of my back pain. And over time, it's done wonders for my overall ambidexterity, as well as a balance and stress for my hands. Do recommend occasionally raking or sweeping with your off hand to start to retrain the brain and the body alike. Smarter? No. Story 129. I had to learn to play drums left-handed to properly be able to teach my left-handed student. The ongoing bonus of this is I play fairly ambidextrously, which opens up cool rhythms, and also I can give different hands breaks by switching up which one plays the hard parts. Story 130. Spark plugs are an excellent example of that for sure. I did mine last summer for the first time. Took me all of 30 minutes in my driveway. Cost less than $245 for 4 spark plugs, $120 for 4 coil packs, 10 for magnetic spark plug socket. I didn't technically need to replace the coil packs, but figured at 95k miles I might as well since I was still saving money versus taking it in. Story 131. Here. 1 year in undergrad school, my grandfather, a mechanic since he was a kid, put some of his duplicate tools in one of his older toolboxes and gave it to me for my birthday. A few friends went, "What a weird, dumb and Sarah gift," until they asked me to look at their cars. I treasure that gift still. Answer: that's such an amazing gift. I'm sure you cherish them. I have tools from my grandfather as well in my box, and every time I use them, I remember him teaching me to use them. I don't have kids of my own, but my best friend's eldest daughter is 16 and has really taken up wanting to learn whenever I work on her mother's car. That one I did the O2 sensors on. She also helped me replace the CV axles and clutch on that car, as well as other things. Going to teach her how to replace the power window regulator soon. She just really likes learning about how to work on vehicles and has been considering going to a school for it after she graduates in a couple years. For Christmas last year, I gave her a 100-piece socket set. LOL. I've actually written in my will that she will be getting any and all of my tools in the event of my passing. If I had the money, I would buy a cheap beater car that needs some work and make it a project for her and I to get back on the road. Story 132. There probably are better feelings, surviving an avalanche or plane crash or firefight maybe, but doing your own car repairs feels pretty dang good. And YouTube makes it so easy. So many kind souls upload videos of how to do the exact job you need to do on your exact car. You can save thousands per year keeping your home fleet running on your own. Story 133. Yes, this bill from a couple days ago was for $3,500 or so. They had accidentally marked it paid. I tried to pay it, and the accountant had to call me back once they sorted it out. Someone had mistakenly marked it paid. There was a medical bill from about 5 years ago for $1,200 that the hospital charged me about $500 more than the insurance company said I should have to pay. I called the hospital and they said that they were still in negotiations with the insurance company and that I should just throw the bill away. I did. That was 5 years ago. I never paid it and my hospital balance is zero. I have noticed small problems on bills many times. Sometimes I point them out and pay the correct amount. Sometimes I ignore them depending on what it's for and who the money's going to. Story 134. Yes, especially if people really want to use the ramps. Chalk your wheels with an actual chalk block, you dummies. The ramps can be fine if you get nice ones. I just feel like I have better control of the situation using a jack. And the cheap ones can be dangerous. Either way you go, though, redundancy is key. Don't be that person who gets trapped under their car. Safety is cheap. Dying is expensive. Story 135. Someone who just learned how to change their oil using plastic ramps probably doesn't have spare wheels lying around. Jack stands are cheap, call it insurance. Insurance against what? Getting popped like a cantaloupe sat on by an elephant. Story 136. Huh? That's ridiculous. You don't have to pay to dispose of used oil. Just drop it off at any shop and they are legally required to take it for free. And you have to pay for your filter and oil anyway, so not sure what that's at. No idea how you end up paying more than doing it yourself. Answer: legally required. You know not every country, city in the world has the same laws, right? LOL. Thankfully, most city dumps will take oil where I'm at, but shops will not, and if you're caught, would probably call the police non-emergency line. I still find oil changes to be slightly worth it. The trick here is to wait for Part Source to do the free filter with 4 liters of oil deal and stock up so you're at 30 CAD for oil and a filter. Lube places are around 105 for synthetic here now, so it's decent savings. Though a jack and stands is nearly 200 CAD just for a flimsy Widowmaker set. Cheapest ramps off Marketplace and spare bricks or firewood to chalk the wheels helps. Story 137. I mean, that's fair. I live in a city where quickie oil changes are cheap and plentiful. When I lived in a rural area where the closest quickie place was 50 miles away, I can see how some people wouldn't find the travel. They're more convenient than doing it yourself. Story 138. Same thing for car repairs. For basic maintenance on your daily driver commuter car grocery getter, YouTube combined with a good service manual can literally save you thousands. You may have to spend a couple $100 on tools here and there, but they pay for themselves several times over pretty much immediately. Plus, when you fix things yourself, whether cars, appliances, home repairs, etc., there's no markup on parts. Story 139. Yeah, I have a landlord special fridge. It started making noise and not working as well, and I'm a pretty technical person, so I swapped out one of the motors for like 15, and it took longer to empty out my freezer than to do the repair. It was just a random video of like, this is how most fridges work. Story 140. Or the exact opposite if you happen to be my best mate. Weirdly, his wife grew up in a wealthy household that sadly went through a bankruptcy due to poor financial management of their business. But she is so financially responsible. Now runs her own successful business too. Good job, or my mate would have cleaned them out.